Hello and welcome to this edition of Ritter's Rant. Today we'll be focusing on the word consistency. It's an important word primarily because it's become more relevant in my life. I just turned 64. That's a lot of rotations around the sun. And reflecting on this, there's some people that say, the older you get, the wiser you get. And then there's other people that conflate wisdom with intelligence. That means that you're smarter. That's not necessarily the case. Generally, you accumulate wisdom not because your brain functions better, but because you've experienced things. Over time, you've learned through the school of hard knocks what works and what doesn't work. You've seen people try things a number of times and they fail. And so it's not intelligence that says, hey, I think if they try it again, they're going to fail. It's wisdom. You say, I've seen this before. It ain't going to work. And so I consider myself not to be smarter, but wiser. And I'm wiser because of consistency over time. When things work consistently over time, that means they're probably going to continue to work. Now, why am I picking on this word? Well, let's transition now to the crux of the issue here. It's not about me turning 64. It's about the policies of Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States, in the Middle East, in particular, his policies regarding Syria, Lebanon, the Levant. These policies are being pursued by one man in particular, Thomas Barak. Tom is, surprise, surprise, not a career diplomat. Tom is a businessman, a personal friend of Donald Trump. Now, it's not unusual for the friends of a successful president to be rewarded for fundraising or for their support, organizational skills, etc., during the campaign, to be rewarded with an ambassadorship. Their job is to go there and represent. They are, after all, the personal envoy of the president. So when people meet with them, they feel as if they are meeting an extension of the president. But the issues of diplomacy then are left in the hands of the professionals, the professional diplomats, in this case, the charge d'affaires, the number two, a man who usually has extensive experience in the area of the world where this political appointee has been thrust upon the State Department. But this isn't the case with Thomas Barak. He's the ambassador to Turkey. But it's not just Turkey he's dealing with. He's been given the title of special envoy for Syria and Lebanon, the Levant. This isn't, holding a cocktail party or going to an event. This is diplomacy. This is the hard work of diplomacy. Now it's been carried out by a man who has no experience in the hard work of diplomacy, a man whose resume says businessman, friend of Donald Trump, fundraiser, somebody who has the ear of the leaders of the Emirates, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. But he's not somebody who knows what works consistently over time, and it's manifested in the policies that he seems to be pursuing. You see, he has taken to X, to social media, and made a number of posts that are very disturbing. He speaks about the pressure that's being placed on Lebanon. And the possibility that unless the Lebanese change their policies towards Hezbollah, Lebanon could see itself disappear. They could see themselves become basically, the beach-going place of the Syrian people. He's talking about the erasure of Lebanon from the map, or redrawing of the map. These are things that haven't been done in decades. In fact, the Middle East map hasn't been redrawn in this way since Sykes-Picot, the 1916 secret agreement between the Brits and the France to, carve up the Ottoman Empire in the aftermath of the First World War. And indeed, we saw new nations emerge from the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Nations like Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Palestine. These nations happened because lines were drawn on a map. But then at the end of the Second World War, a decision was made by the international community that we weren't going to start redrawing lines on a map. Well, they did a little bit with the creation of Israel. But Syria is the Syrian nation. You don't mess with that. Lebanon is the Lebanese nation. You don't mess with that. The lines are manifest. But no, in comes Thomas Barak. And basically, he's threatening the Lebanese government that if you don't get rid of Hezbollah, not just as a resistance movement, but as a political party, that the United States doesn't see a distinction between the two, that Lebanon could cease to exist. And who's going to take over Lebanon? Syria. But Syria is a basket case. It's not Tom Barak's fault that Bashar al-Assad fell. That happened during the time of Joe Biden. But, he's the guy that is in there cutting the deals and telling Donald Trump that it's a good idea to stand shoulder to shoulder with a terrorist who just a few months ago had a $10 million bounty on his head. That's Jolani, the president of Syria. It's a good idea to stand next to him, shake his hand, say he's a good guy. He's not a good guy. He's a murderer. He's killed Americans. Barack, this isn't a good idea. But no, that's what he keeps telling the president, that this is what we're going to do. Meanwhile, you have the Syrian president, this terrorist, Jolani, starting to say, hey, I'll cut some deals. If Israel gives me part of the Golan Heights, I'll exchange the rest of the Golan Heights if you let me take the city of Tripoli, that's in northern Lebanon, to go in and redraw the maps. And now Tom Barak is saying, yeah, this could be a good idea. No, it's not a good idea. It's a horrible idea. But this goes hand in hand with the idea of recognizing the terrorist as the legitimate leader of Syria. Not a good idea, a horrible idea, because a terrorist at the end of the day is a terrorist. Jolani will always be a terrorist. It doesn't matter if it's a CIA-trained terrorist, a British-trained terrorist, or an Israeli-trained terrorist, all of which may be true. He's still a terrorist, a man who cut off the heads of Americans for a living. And now he's the president of Syria. I don't know what Tom Barak told, Donald Trump about what he thought he could accomplish by eliminating the status of terrorists, by recognizing this government, by lifting sanctions. Because whatever he said was going to happen isn't happening. Barak has been in there cutting deals now between the Syrian government and the Kurdish forces. The Americans have been supporting Kurds in the northeastern part of Syria for some time now. The Syrian Democratic Forces have been trained and backed by the United States. And yet Barak is trying to cut a deal where he says, hey, the Kurds will now roll their military force, which is giving them security, into the overarching organizational structure of the Syrian army. And deals have been cut to that regard. But then the small print comes in. Now, Jolani, the terrorist, who's been fighting, by the way, the Syrians for some time now, says, no, they're not going to roll in as complete units. We're going to break them up and disperse them around. Why would you do that? Why would you break up that which gives you strength and disperse your strength into the hands of the terrorists? Meanwhile, Jolani is actively incorporating foreign terrorists into the Syrian army. When I say foreign, I mean we're talking people from Uzbekistan, from Chechnya, from Turkmenistan, from China. People have no relation whatsoever with Syria or Syria's peripheral neighbors, but people who have come to Syria to fight a jihad, a holy war against the Takfiri, against the Christians, against the Druze, against the Shia, against the Alawites. And now they're officially part of the Syrian army. And terrorists are going to do what terrorists are going to do. So they go around and they burn Christian villages. They slaughter the Alawite population. They hunt down the Shia. They destroy shrines. And just the other day, they went after the Druze. That was their mistake, you see, because the Druze are allied with the state of Israel. And the Israelis have responded decisively, striking the Syrian Ministry of Defense, annihilating it, striking Syrian army units as they move towards villages where the Druze are under attack. They've struck Syria so hard that the man that stood side by side with Donald J. Trump, Jolani, had to flee. And he apparently has gone back to where he came from, Idlib, where the terrorists created their base. He's run back to a sanctuary, driven out of Damascus. Why? It looks like Israel is going to make a play on southern Lebanon or southern Syria right now. The lines are being redrawn. The maps are being changed. And is this part of the grand plan? No. It's what you get when you stop relying on consistent policy over the time and you start making things up which is what Tom Barack has been doing, just making it up as going on. Everything's a transaction. Everything's a business deal. Well, that's not how it works. Wisdom, Tom. Wisdom. Over time, you see what works and what doesn't work. And going in and redrawing lines on maps and giving terrorists the ability to run nation states is not what works. A wise man would have said, don't do it. But Tom Barack's not a wise man when it comes to diplomacy. He's a businessman, a friend of Donald Trump. So what you get is what you get. I just want to leave with this. It's not just Syria that Tom Barack's sticking his fingers into. He's now been given the Armenian Azerbaijani portfolio. This is another one of those complex problems where lines are being drawn on the map, redrawn on the map. And one of the sticking points to a peace treaty between the Armenians and Azerbaijanis is what they call the Zungezar corridor, basically a 36-kilometer long highway that's supposed to connect the this part of Azerbaijan, the Nakhchivan, it's not enclave, exclave, with the mainland of Azerbaijan. Like cuts right through southern Armenia. And the Azerbaijani government says we have to have this corridor. It has to provide us the connectivity so that Turkey can then connect through Azerbaijan into Central Asia, and it's a wonderful thing. But the Armenians are saying that's our territory. We're not going to just give it up. So it's a hard negotiation. Well, enter Tom Barack. You know what his solution is? Just lease America the corridor. Lease America. It's a business deal. It's a transaction. Lease us the highway. We'll manage it for 100 years and everything will be hunky-dory. No, the Armenians have already said they're not going to do it. That's a violation of their sovereignty. But this is the issue here. Consistency over time. That's what you need when it comes to diplomacy. But what has the Trump administration done? They fired over 1,300 career State Department employees. Many of them were engaged in the business of doing the very evaluations we're talking about, whether it be with the Middle East or it be with Russia and Ukraine. These are the experts, the intelligence people, and they've been fired because Donald Trump's not looking for intelligence. He's not looking for people who understand diplomacy consistently over time. Donald Trump wants to hand everything off to his business partners, to his friends, to his allies, people like Tom Barack, who are destroying America's reputation in the Middle East. Donald Trump has about 3.5 years left to go as president of the United States. At some point in time, he will stop being the president of the United States. And the key question here right now is how much damage can he do in the next 3.5 years? How much damage can Tom Barack do? And I'm afraid that the answer is a whole lot. I don't know this to be the case, but I'm wise enough to know that over time, certain things will succeed and certain things will fail. And Donald Trump's policies are a recipe for disaster. This has been my rant. Thanks for tuning in. Next time a thought crosses my mind, I'll be sure to let you know.